Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Truergy, also known as Baron Sidious. And today I'm going to be presenting to you the notes that I have taken for Amazon Prime Video's Fallout. This is going to be the notes from Season 1, Episode 2. Unlike last time, I'm going to try to cut through more of the hemming and hawing and correlation to trim down the time on this one. And I'm just going to be reading directly from the notes I took for observation as I was going through. I may end up making a couple of deviations, but you'll probably be able to easily tell where those are. Note 1. Well, episode 2 starts us right off with no chance to really settle in, showing a newborn puppy being put into an incinerator under a sign that says, quote, "Incinerate newborns weighing less than 10 ounces. The burning pup's death whine seems a little bit over the top, but set to the soundtrack of the ink spots "Into Each Life a Little Rain Must Fall," this fits the noir humor / aesthetic of Fallout pretty snugly, less than a minute in. A side note, Michael Emerson's a really great casting choice here for this enclave scientist. Note 2. At the 3-minute mark, we've established visually that Emerson's nameless doctor / scientist, at this point, because we didn't have his name yet, took CX-404 basically as his personal pet / companion. And here the good doc injects himself with some sort of implant of a capsule for safekeeping. as a side note, and this is where my immediate, already breaking my promise not to go rambling, but I love the choice of tag for the dog, CX-404. 404 in internet lingo typically means file not found, or this website doesn't exist, we can't locate it. And Emerson's character keeps the dog hidden in a hole in his lab away from everyone else. So, can't find this file, can't find this dog. Why? Well, because it's being tucked away and hidden. Thought it was a nice little injection of NetSpeak humor. At the 4:45 mark, off-screen, CX-404 does exactly what well-bred guard dogs do. He attacked and murked the researcher who got aggressive with his owner / companion. And Emerson's character looks on seemingly horrified, but really, what did he expect? This is a guard dog. The breed is known for attack and aggression. We switch over to Lucy at the 5-minute 55-second mark after the title. At 6 minutes 45 seconds, this flinch reaction of Lucy's to rolling tumbleweed was a really nice touch, subtle, yet informative in her unfamiliarity with the world beyond Vault 33. The actress portraying Lucy, she does a fantastic job throughout this series. Next note, at the 7-minute 58-second mark, Vault Tech Plan B bottle. This singular shot is a gut punch when one recognizes that this mother and father skeleton gave it to their unwitting toddler, situated in a high chair, with a glass half drank on the chair, so that they could all, quote, evacuate together. Just, ugh. This was a brutal moment, and quite telling of Vault Tech 2. Profit, even in infanticide. This moment hit me hard as a father and was well played on screen. The visual moments and cues throughout this show early on in the first few episodes really was quite powerful. The 10-minute mark, Emerson, playing the Enclave escapee, and CX-404, meeting Lucy out in the wilderness seems a touch Deus Ex Machina to me, until one considers that campfires must surely be fairly rare, thus easy to pinpoint and guide him to her side. His detached clinical explanation of the rad roach is impressive and adds a bit of weight to his softer touch manner. He's familiar with the brutality of the world of the surface and remains detached. At the 12-minute and 45-second mark, Maximus's attempt to strike up a conversation with Knight Titus is awkward, and the response from Titus is rather cringe-inducing, wherein he pulls off the codpiece of his armor, as it were, and tosses it at Squire Maximus and snarls, "Clean that," which Maximus proceeds to do rather haltingly. The resentment for this dynamic between Knight and Squire is already palpable, and this scene leaves me detesting them both fairly evenly. At the 14-minute mark, roughly, we finally see a sliver of hope from my vantage point in the character of Maximus. When Titus demands that the vertibird set down because, quote, "I'm bored, I want to shoot something," Maximus tries to remind Lord Titus that they are still far from their search area of Philly. And so he wants to proceed with the mission, despite the denigrating position that he seems to be stuck in as Titus's squire. Next point, at 16 minutes 30 seconds. I'm calling Deus Ex Machina all over Titus and Maximus just happening upon the Enclave Doc's position here out in the woods. You can see the leavings of his little camp, the cram can. This is too well wrapped up, although there was a nice use of the visual indication of the can of cram, the Fall Heights version of Spam. Sorry about the coughing. Next note, at the 18-minute mark. Titus sending Maximus into obvious danger is one thing if the kid is at least armed. This just seems like Titus baiting a hook. He's clearly a callous brute, but he does send the squire in at least with a gun, though, Maximus, as Maximus pointed out, he has no armor. Now, on the irradiated bear, what I thought of immediately as a Yagwai, because I played the games, my first thought was, it was very well done visually. Titus's vulgarity seems fitting as he's running away going, "Fuck, fuck, 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 fuck," if a bit obnoxious. His sheer cowardice when he is disarmed struck me as abrupt, and the fact that it only took two shots to the head from Maximus to finish the bear off, it felt a bit off to me. But only because, again, I've played the games, and Yagwais take quite a bit more than that to take down. My next note is a rather lengthy one, by comparison to some of my notes here. The whole verbal browbeating that Titus gives Maximus once the helmet comes off, and it's revealed to be played by Michael Rappaport, good choice in casting, again. While keeping with Titus's attitude up to this point seems incredibly short-sighted on the knight's part. Like, dude, were you not paying attention during their interrogation that you were present for? This squire is fueled by resentment, my man, and your self-preservation instincts are clearly for absolute shit. Stow the threatening lecture, maybe, for when after Maximus gives you the stim pack, huh? Also, given his exposure to the wastelands already, why did he hesitate to take the shot on the bear? Why did Maximus hesitate? Note 13, at 22 minutes and 45 seconds, quote from Maximus, "You don't deserve that armor." At this point, I felt pretty well done with this dirtbag character. The petty jealousy, the resentment, and now he's just going to let Titus expire slowly from his injuries. Maximus is a treacherous coward, full stop. Now, despite my feelings about the character there, I will note that if this is the impression that the writers of the show wanted to give of this character, they did a great job, if that was their aim. If they were intending to, however, if they were trying to make this character empathetic or sympathetic, they failed utterly. Because I am familiar with the Brotherhood of Steel and the lore. This kind of character, this kind of squire, would never have been sent out in the field. If they were trying to make me like this guy, they fucked it up bad. 23-minute and 50-second mark. Back to Lucy, whose awkwardness at approaching an unarmed stranger with weapon drawn, asking if she can approach, is it's endearing. Naive, but endearing. The water farmer drinking her clean water imparts a valuable lesson, too. One delivered without malice. Don't offer resources that you need for your own survival. Note 15, at the 30-minute mark. The discovery of the wrist-concealed mini flamethrowers, or what I thought were flamethrowers, are actually the jump jets of the T-60 power armor suit. As Maximus waves off the chicken collector, was rather frustrating to me, and a huge error of conceits. As much of a prick as Titus is/was, he was supposed to be portrayed as an experienced knight, one who knows the gear that he's using. So how, when he was fist fighting with the Yagwai, did he not engage and use those jump jets as melee weapons? I mean, given how stringent the Brotherhood is conveyed to be in their training, how did Titus screw that up so badly? Titus's screed about getting shitty assignments and bitching about the clerics, I kind of get it, but the guy was a knight. He should have known his equipment. Those jump jets are powerful. If they're strong enough to propel the weight of the power armor through the air, then surely those jets could be turned on the Yagwai's face in melee combat. And that's a problem that comes up again in a couple of other spots. All I could think was, you are not using your resources properly. Point 16, Philly, being a landfill. The downtown area is visually fairly reminiscent of Megaton in Fallout 3, which is not a bad thing necessarily. I thought it was a nice callback. There seems to be a lot of Wild West atmosphere to this settlement, which is fitting given who shows up very shortly. The 36-minute mark. The tail end of Lucy's interaction with the old lady Crater, their back and forth, was a little embarrassing to watch. It plays upon a theme that we've already seen with Maximus, the perspective of resentment. There's even a kind of struggle session statement here from Lucy, who apologizes for Vault Dweller's privilege. Why apologize? This traitor lady is possibly descended from Vault Dwellers herself, but even if not, the great bombings were 200 years ago. Current-day Vault descendants are not responsible for the crimes and decisions of their forebearers. So, I'm sorry, but fuck this old lady. And fuck the writers of this show for inserting this kind of messaging. Perhaps I'm being too sensitive to this kind of thing, or I'm I'm so accustomed to looking for it in modern storytelling of the audiovisual nature, but here it's almost blatant. Point 18. As Lucy meets up with the Enclave escapee again, Wilzig, he demonstrates deeper knowledge of her Vault 33. He mentions that she was, quote, brought up in a meritocracy, which, coupled with her nearly crippling naivete, leaves me suspecting that this is another subtle message from the writers or showrunners at Amazon, attempting to take a dig at such a worldview. Next point. Wilzig takes one hell of a bad initial injury at the hands of the ghoul at around the 40-minute mark. The gunshot seems to have been either an explosive round or just needless gore, one or the other. It is basically like a grenade puncher wound. My next point for the battle sequence in general, the VATS-style slow motions were kind of a nice touch, if I'm being honest. I liked that it was reminiscent of the VATS combat system in the first-person perspective Fallout games. My next note at the 44-minute mark. While I always hate to see dogs get hurt or killed in shows and films, the seeming demise or crucial injury of CX-404 here is understandable. It's also a curious choice. We just watched this ghoul blow away between 6 to 12 people, all in a spray of blood, brains, and body parts. Yet, the camera cuts away for the dog to be injured off-screen. Why? Why is this viewed as more off-putting than the brutal blowing apart of people's heads, throats, torsos, legs, and limbs? And is it because the dog isn't attacking out of greed, like the humans are, but is just defending its owner or companion? Does the dog get sympathy because it is responding to instinct and training? Why is this directorial decision made? What's the distinction? At the 45-minute mark, my next note, Maximus's entrance is needlessly grandiose, but it is in keeping with what I believe now to be his own personal delusion of grandeur. His ineptitude with the knight's sidearm is borderline hilarious and leaves me with more than a few tactical questions, as I had with Titus versus the Yagwai. Again, why not use those thrusters in melee combat? Claiming or using Titus's title, though, why? Was he ashamed of what he had done? Is he just going for obfuscation? Something doesn't add up, given his whole spiel about Titus, quote, not deserving the armor. If Titus didn't deserve the armor, then why claim to be Knight Titus? And when the ghoul goes up the ruined steps that he was punched into, why doesn't Maximus just throw something at him? He'd already proven to himself how much physical power was available in the suit. And the ghoul is in point-blank throwing range. So this just seemed inconsistent. Point 23. Jim's limbs. What? This instant appendage replacement gizmo seemed pretty neat, and like it would be something out of Robco or Vault-Tec technology, especially given the obvious pain that's involved in its application. My next note at the 50-minute mark, Maximus finally seems to wise up a little bit in terms of how to fight the ghoul, which felt like it took a little too long. At the 53-minute mark, as Maximus crashes, I'm oddly satisfied that the ghoul got the better of him, proving that gear superiority is not a match or replacement for skill and experience. With the next note, CX-404 is not dead after all, after getting a stim pack treatment. I have somewhat mixed feelings about this, but I'll come to that later. The 56-minute and 30-second mark, Vault-Tec Plan D. a cyanide capsule that Wilzig takes, and he comments that it was, quote, the most humane product Vault-Tec ever made. This makes me wonder, does this sentiment say more about Wilzig or more about Vault-Tec? The final note that I have written down is at the 57-minute and 44-second mark, right before the credits, Lucy pulls out from his bag a Ripper, a handheld chainsaw weapon. This is a nice bit of lore reference to the weaponry of the Fallout series. The utilitarianism here is quite brutal, but well executed. Yes, pun intended. Those are my notes for episode 2 of Amazon's presentation of Fallout, a post-apocalyptic tale. There's quite a lot to enjoy about this series in these first 2 episodes, but as you can tell, I was spotting things from fairly early on that made me grumble. Not so much just as a fan of the games and the established canon lore, but as a storyteller, as someone familiar with the complexities of messaging, theme, and tone. There's a great deal to enjoy here, visually, yes. The spectacle of Fallout is well done. But spectacle alone does not a great program or story make. And we'll get more into that as we proceed forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask that you take care of yourselves, and as always, keep reading.